Order, honorable members, can you please take your seats? Order.
Order, please.
The secretary will read the first order of the day.
Consideration of the 2025 fiscal framework and revenue proposals, and of the report of the Standing Committee on Finance.
Thank you very much, Dr. Order. There is a hand raised by the DA Chief Whip, as well as the EFF, and is it ATM? And MK. Can we start with the DA? Let me hear your point of order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise in terms of Rule 92 on a procedural matter. Madam Speaker, you would have received my letter this morning indicating that we are of the opinion that the report as it was published today, the final recommendation was not included and put before the committee last night as it appears in the ATC, and therefore it does fall foul of Section 8.4 of the Money Bills Amendment Procedure and Related Matters Act. I did receive your response. However, I wish to put on record that it is our opinion that this procedural matter is, that the matter is in procedural default. It must also be kept in mind that it's a matter of law, since the VAT increase will commence on the 1st of May 2025, and we would like to ask you to please send this report back to the committee on those procedural grounds, because if the House considers that report, despite the procedural defect, that this House would be complicit in considering what we believe to be an illegal report at this stage. Thank you.
Noted. Can I hear, I think it's Bossa. Was it Bossa or ATM? No, I've noted the other parties. I've noted you, EFF.
Thank you,
No,
Speaker.
you were the third. It's okay? Yes, honourable member.
Thank you, Speaker. I want to echo the sentiments from the Democratic Alliance regarding the issues that have been raised not only by them but also by MK and EFF on the flawed process that was followed to adopt the report that will be considered today. So based on that, our submission is that the committee must be requested to properly and legally follow the correct processes in terms of adopting that report, so that when it comes to the House, it comes to the House having gone through the proper legal channels. Thank you.
Thank you, EFF.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, we wrote to you last night, and your response that you sent to us earlier today is deeply unsatisfactory. And Speaker, I want to put it to you that you missed the point completely, because you are quoting a rule that seeks to say that it was the workings of the committee. It is not. It's a legal requirement, Speaker. If you look at the Money Bills Amendment Procedure and Related Matters Act, Section 8, subsection. Speaker, my mic is going off. So Section 8, subsection 4 clearly says that there must be a clear statement of whether we accept or we amend the fiscal framework and revenue proposals. We're putting it to you that you were misled to believe that that happened in the committee, because it did not. In your response, you are saying that you got advised that that happened. I sit in that committee. We were there from morning until evening. That did not happen. And we are saying to you, it's a question of a legal requirement, not a procedure of a committee. And therefore, we appeal to you to suspend today's proceedings, send back the staff to go and do the right thing and comply with the law of this country in terms of that act. Otherwise, if you continue as Speaker, it will be procedurally unfair and unlawful. Therefore, we're asking you please suspend today's proceedings. Let the Standing Committee on Finance go and agree firstly with a clear statement as is stipulated in the Act that it must be clear that it's either amending or accepting. The issue of the recommendations and the report, that's a separate issue altogether. Here we are dealing with an objection because of the illegality of the process that happened yesterday. I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. Noted. The MK.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, we rise on the same issues that members are raising with a different angle. And the angle we are rising on for us on a procedural matter in terms of the monies bill is that in the monies bill that we're dealing with here today, the Money Bills Amendment Procedure and Related Matters Act, that act does not make provision for conditional acceptance. What we saw happening in the committee is a situation where one of the parties made a condition that they support the bill on condition that in 30 days this and that must happen. So we're saying, Speaker, that's procedurally flawed. There is nothing in that law that allows for conditional acceptance. So to bring a report here with a conditional acceptance is to bring a legally flawed report. Secondly, Speaker, in terms of the law, there is no latitude to reject the report. But if you go to the report, Chair, you go to the last line of the report, it has listed companies there that have rejected the report. That should have been the easiest of things to illustrate the illegality of this. It cannot be that you have a report that lists, on the last line, Speaker, have a look at that report. Even if you have to take a 10-minute adjournment, look at that report. You will find an unlawful line there that says this party, that party rejected. The law does not allow you to reject. So to have a report that talks about the rejection, we have a report that is unlawful. We're calling on you, Speaker, to do two things. One, to declare this sitting, to declare the processing of this report as an unlawful processing. And we're calling on your conscience, Speaker, to say you cannot lead an unlawful process. So we're calling on you to, and if you differ with that, Speaker, we're asking that you put this matter on the vote, and as you do, we allow us to vote individually if you differ with the fact of declaring this an unlawful processing of the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, I have noted all the hands that have been raised in respect of this matter. Honorable members, as we know, the passage of the fiscal framework and the budget are determined by the Money Bills and Related Matters Act of 2009. In the case of the fiscal framework, Section 8 of the Act prescribes that the Standing Committee must consider the fiscal framework within certain parameters. Moreover, in terms of its report, Section 8, subsection 4 of the Act states that, I quote, the report must include a clear statement accepting or amending the fiscal framework, close quote. The dispute is whether, in the process of concluding the report, the question to accept the fiscal framework was duly considered by the committee. Honorable members, the Act does not determine the specific details of the decision-making process within the committee. The rules of the House do, however, provide some guidance. Assembly Rule 232 provides that the committee must perform the function and exercise the power specified in the Act, as well as those listed in Rule 227. The committee can also exercise the power specified in Rule 167, except insofar as any of these provisions are inconsistent with the provisions of the Act. Rule 167, subsection F, in turn adds that a committee may determine its own working arrangements. I am advised that the draft report was formally adopted in the Standing Committee. The report before the House states the following on page 35, which I think has been quoted by Honorable Manye. I quote, Having considered the 2025 fiscal framework and revenue proposal, the Standing Committee on Finance accept the 2025 fiscal framework and revenue proposal, close quote. On the basis of the report and advice received, I'm not convinced that the committee contravened the law or the rules when finalizing its report. Consequently, there is no legal impediment preventing this House today to proceed with its business. Honorable members, order. I also want to state that I received letters, even though at different times, from the economic freedom fighters, which landed on our desk at 5 a.m. this morning, asking us to respond by 8 o'clock. But because we have to satisfy ourselves about these matters, we missed their deadline, but we responded equally. We also received subsequently the letter of the Democratic Alliance, which again we responded to it, and the letter from Umkhonto weSizwe Party, which again we responded to them on the matters that again they've just raised in this House for all of you to appreciate it, including even what was my response to those parties. So this is my ruling that we proceed with the report today. Thank you. Honorable Manye, an honorable member of the EFF.
Chairperson, I know how the rules work in terms of if one is not happy with the ruling. The issue I want to raise, Chair, is a different one. That purely based on facts, you say you've been advised. Well, I want to put it to you, Madam Speaker, that you were improperly advised. The meeting ended around 6 o'clock. We can show evidence that the report was distributed at 7:30 at night. So it cannot be, the two can't work together. You can't have a meeting finishing at 6 and you have a report circulated at 7:30. Clearly the report was done after the meeting and therefore the procedures were not followed. So to be advised that everything was done, you were misled, Speaker. You've taken a decision based on the wrong information. We ask you to adjourn the House for 10 minutes and get the facts right.
Honorable Manye, thank you very much. I've noted your concern, but you must also appreciate that when committees sit, you do have the staff of Parliament, all of whom were consulted in responding to your letters. Honorable member of the EFF.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, it's very painful that we have to repeat again and again the things we said in the committee. And even in the committee, we repeated many times, and the chairperson refused to follow what the law says. Now we come here, I'm going to read the act, what it says, Madam Speaker, because what you are quoting for is the procedure of the committee. But here is the act that guides what needs to happen once we've got the fiscal framework. The Speaker, let me refer you to Section 8.
Honorable members, let's allow the member the privilege to quote the act which all of you have. You can
Please.
quote the section you want to quote.
Yes, Section 8, adopting the fiscal framework and revenue proposals. And it reads as follows. The National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces must refer the fiscal framework and revenue proposals to their respective committee on finance. The committees must conduct joint public hearings on the fiscal framework and revenue proposals. The committees must, within 16 days of the tabling of the national budget, submit a report to the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces as the case requires under fiscal framework and revenue proposals. The report must include a clear statement accepting or amending the fiscal framework and revenue proposals. When amending the fiscal framework, a money bill, or taking any decisions in terms of this act, Parliament and its committees must ensure that there is an appropriate balance between revenue, expenditure, and borrowing. Speaker, there was never a time in the committee where the chairperson asked whether we are accepting the fiscal framework and revenue proposal or we are amending it. We are saying to you that did not happen. What happened is that we started with the report and the chairperson asked us to have input on the report and make recommendations on the report. Even at the end, it was never subjected to whether we are accepting the fiscal framework and revenue proposal. And therefore, what is going to be tabled here today is procedurally unfair. We can't continue with a document that is procedurally unfair. It did not follow the process as stipulated by the Money Bills Act. We're asking you, Speaker, once again, please suspend the proceedings of today. Let's follow the law. We obviously have South Africans who are waiting for these monies, but we will not vote on a report that is illegal, Madam Speaker. Please, thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask Honorable Michalakis, followed by Honorable Zagude?
Thank you very much for the response, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Rule 167 still requires the committee to fulfill its functions within the ambit of the law and the determinations of the law. The fact of the matter is that the members of the committee yesterday frequently asked for updated versions of the report as they were going through it. And the fact is that the final version of the report as it appears in the ATC was never presented and voted on by those members as a final step. That is a procedural irregularity. I respect your right to make the determination and the ruling, but I do have to stress, Madam Speaker, that there is a serious procedural defect in this, and we do stand a risk as a House to be part of that procedural irregularity if this vote does not get postponed today. So I would like to ask you to please take Rule 167 into consideration, as well as the facts that we've put before you this afternoon, that the procedure was not followed according to the law. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Zagude. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to inform this House on a point of procedure that the Standing Committee on Finance followed all the processes according to the money bills. I didn't howl at you when you speak.
Chair. Point of order, Chair.
Order, honorable members, can we allow
Point of order, Chair.
Honorables Tambo?
Point of order.
Can we order? Honorable member, I will take a point of order, but I've given a member an opportunity.
This is a mistruth. She can't make a reflection of a committee she doesn't sit on. What is she reflecting on?
Honorable
She's
member,
reflecting on an ATC that is irregular, unlawful, adopted unprocedurally.
Honorable,
She's telling us.
honorable member, I have raised with you that no, you allow a member to conclude a point. I will give you an opportunity to raise your point of order. We can't allow a process that is just going to be unfair. Honorable members, each member is equal. I have given a member an opportunity, and also Honorable Tambo, other members have spoken here who don't sit in the committee, made their reflections. So it's not the first member. Other chief whips here, some of them don't sit in that committee, and they've spoken, they've made their reflections. So you can put your hand down, I will come to you. So can you please allow me to chair the session? Honorable Zagude. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Like I was saying, the Portfolio Committee, according to the report that we got, followed all the processes according to the money bills and also the rules of Parliament. We were then informed in the Chief Whip's Forum this morning by the EFF and also the MK that the sitting today is illegal
and they are going to court if this sitting is not postponed. So we indicated to them that as the ANC, we are going to the sitting, and those who feels that the sitting is illegal, they shouldn't attend, because by mere of their attendance in this house now, it means they agree with the processes and also they are legitimizing the sitting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Tambo. Order, honorable members. Honorable Tambo,
Thank
what's
you.
your point of
Thank
order?
you very much, Chairperson. I think the first point of departure that we must state that although members of parliament should all be allowed to make reflections and contributions in parliament, it should be labeled and categorized as incorrect to reflect on the procedure of a meeting you did not attend and base your reflection on a report that is currently being contested in the House. The reflection on procedural processes that happened in the committee being made by Honorable Jagute is based on a report that we are currently debating whether it's valid or not. So her submission is invalid. Second to that, because we are saying that we can take this report to court, we must correct you on the timeline of when we sent you the letter. We didn't send you a letter at 5 a.m. this morning. It was sent to your office last night after we received this irregular report that did not contain the amendments we as members of parliament put into the report while we were in the committee. So the letter we sent to you was based on the fact that we received a final report that did not reflect recommendations and amendments that we stated in the committee, that had, in hindsight and in retrospect, a clause that accepts the fiscal framework of 2025 and revenue proposals, whereas we never deliberated on that in the committee. So please, let's refrain from reflecting on procedural occurrences in the committee when we were not there, and let us allow members of the committee who were there, who witnessed procedural errors. 3 political parties have raised that here today. Let's allow them to be the ones who guide those reflections and advise you. You are advised by people who manipulated a report. It's unlawful, it's illegal, and we must allow this house to conclude now. Thank you.
Well, thank you, honorable members. I do think I must reflect, as I've said earlier. Each letter I receive from a party, from a member of this house, I do read and consider it. I do get advice in terms of the rules, in terms of the procedure, before I satisfy myself and respond, which I did. And I've given a ruling on the basis of what I received from you and the advice I received. I do not see any reason why this house must not sit. And I do want to say, honorable members, anyway, all committee reports come to the house. It is the floor that will decide whether it accepts or rejects a report. And all of you, as you will be participating in the debate, you can decide that you reject this report, you do not accept it. And therefore, I will now proceed with the discussions. Honorable member, I am not suspending the House, nor am I giving a 10 minutes for consultation. Thank you very much. Honorable member of the EFF.
Speaker, thank you. I just need to correct this and put it on record that you did not receive the letter at 5 a.m. this morning. The letter was sent to your office at 11:46 last night. So your office is very much incompetent and you can't say it was received. I've got proof here. So South Africans must know that the EFF wrote a letter to the Speaker at 11:46.
You're wasting time.
Madam Speaker, and you only responded to us now at 12.
Thank you, honorable
Speaker,
member.
The second point, Speaker, let me just finish. It's incorrect for you to
Order, honorable members.
It's incorrect, Madam Speaker, for you to say all committee reports comes here and gets voted for. We are dealing with the fiscal framework and revenue proposal, which is guided by the Money Bills Act. And the Money Bills Act is very clear and explicit to say in the committee, there must be an indication of whether you accept.
Honorable member, you have repeatedly raised that point. Order, honorable member, can you allow us?
Even after numerous.
Can you allow us to point other members? You have made your point. You have raised the same points and I've listened and I've responded.
I agree, Speaker, but you
Exactly,
keep on
but-
saying the wrong things and we
but-
must correct you.
Honorable member,
We must correct you.
Honorable member, you know the rules of this house. When a speaker or a presiding officer has ruled, you have got other channels to raise your point. And I don't think we need to belabor that. Honorable member of the PA?
Speaker, you have given us ample time to debate here.
Let's proceed, Speaker. Let's proceed. Let's proceed.
Remember,
We've made a
allow a member to say their point.
Speaker, you've given us a chance to debate. We've heard our views. You have ruled. Now you're being asked of things at midnight. You are the security guard that was looking at your computer the whole night. Let us vote for the budget. The people are waiting. Let us vote.
Order, honorable members, I've closed this debate. I'm now allowing the chairperson of the committee to actually come and table the report.
On a point of order, House Chair. On a point of order, House Chair. Speaker, on a different point. Speaker, on a point of order. Point of order, House Chair.
Honorable members, I have closed the debate on the point of order, whether the issue must be debated or not. Honorable Chairperson,
On a different point.
honorable members,
On a different point.
I will take a different point when we've tabled the report. Honorable Manya, you can put your point down. On procedural matters, I've responded to you on this matter. And the item on the agenda is on the tabling of the report of the fiscal framework. And we must proceed. We've taken your points. We've heard that some of you have a problem with it, but I've responded and I've closed the matter.
Speaker, I'm rising on a different point. Can I continue?
No, honorable member.
It's a sound. I want to raise the issue of the sound.
Okay, the sound people have heard, they are going to correct the sound.
No, we don't hear anything, Speaker. On a point of order, Speaker.
Honorable member,
People sit down, we raise the issue of the sound. And then honorable member, the sound has been attended to.
honorable member,
Now, with the problem of the sound, Speaker.
honorable Mkalipi, you have said you wanted to raise a point on the sound. The sound people must deal with the sound, but we must continue.
No, we can't hear.
What are you responding
cannot
to?
hear.
You are responding to what?
The members that are dealing with the sound are going to address it. Honorable,
We can't hear, Speaker.
Honorable Manye, if it's the point about the report, I've ruled on that. So I don't think we're going to take another new point on that matter.
Fix the
So what
sound,
is your-
Speaker. We don't hear anything.
You are hearing everything.
What is your point of order, Honorable Manye, which is not on this matter?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Madam Speaker. The only point I'm rising on is not to deal with anything that you've dealt with. It's just to correct for the record of this House that as the MK party, we only got acknowledgement of the letter, but we didn't get the response. I've seen other responses to other parties, but the response to MK has not arrived as we speak. There is no response on the issue that we've raised.
Well,
That's
you-
why we put that on the record.
Honorable member, you can also check on your reports or on your emails. The response was given to the MK party. What I did not do is to respond to you on WhatsApp because you also sent your letter on the WhatsApp. I sent it on the official email. And to come back to the issue at hand, let's have the honorable member, the chairperson of the committee, to table the report.
On a point of order, House Speaker. On a point of order,
What
Speaker.
is the point of order, honorable member?
Speaker,
the sound, we cannot hear a thing.
Yes.
We cannot hear anything.
can't hear.
I'm not sure if you address the issue of sound.
Honorable
can't hear
Reggie, the issue of
We are
the
proceeding
sound,
with a meeting
the
where
issue,
we cannot hear anybody.
you know, honorable
And
members,
then your members across are
It's-
making the biggest noise here.
it's very interesting because I can hear you, but you can't hear me. Very interesting.
We cannot hear you.
It's a
Why
very
are you
interesting
responding
take
if you can't hear?
because I'm responding to you and you are responding to me. So, Honorable Sangwini, what's your point of order?
Thank you very much, House Chair. You know what, House Chair, what is quite embarrassing and what is quite sad, it's your desperation this afternoon. You can clearly hear that there are issues with the sound and your reluctance to just give us a 10-minute break to sort out the sound issues. Because it's not only about me and you seated in this tent, it's about the millions of South Africans that are waiting on this house to make a decision. And to only make it about you, it's wrong. And to only make it about the ANC, yet again,
We can hear you
it's
very
wrong.
well.
Stop wanting to be a voting kettle. Stop addressing the issue of the sound. Let's take a 10-minute break. The
Sound
sound
is
and the
perfect,
echo, it's bad. And
We
that
can
is the
hear you very
reflection
well.
on the videos that
It's
we are putting
wonderful.
out there to our constituency. We are saying this is a people's parliament, so let us act
In
as
further
that
on, we're on
and stop
still.
this rubber
Sound
stamping
is
that you are
perfect. We
planning to
can
do
hear
this
you.
afternoon.
Our people can hear you, Speaker. Continue.
Order, the member of the PA.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Speaker, I agree with all parties complaining about the sound. It is now and then a bit inaudible. But I've got two solutions. One, I've tested the headphones, it works perfectly, and it solves the problem with the sound. And secondly, if they are quiet, they will hear the sound better, Honorable Speaker, because we've got South Africa waiting on the budget, and we cannot waste the time of our citizens of this country by listening to frivolous things when we do have solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member Nolchungu.
Thank you very much, Speaker. We are going to vote at the end of the session. And I want to appeal to you that this is a matter that is very important, that you allow that each and every individual stands up and vote verbally. It is not something new. It is not something.
Sit down, eh?
Order, honorable members, let's allow the member to raise their point.
She's abusing us.
No, honorable member, you've got no right. That's my right to determine whether what the member is saying is out of order or not.
Making it
Honorable member, can you
It
finish your point?
Yes, it will not be the first time that we do that. Remember, on the issue of Pala Pala, we did the same. When Judge Stoppe, we voted verbally. So I'm appealing to you that we entertain that process for today. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable member of the of the MK party.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Madam Speaker. We support, but we are saying it should be on a secret ballot. I'm supporting it should be on a secret ballot.
We're not in a PGM, yeah. We're not in a PGM.
Honorable member, order. I have a duty to ensure the smooth conduct of proceedings. Order, honorable members. I also have to ensure that the privileges of all members of the sittings are protected. Honorable members at the back, on the side of the EFF and side of the MK, you can converse, but you mustn't drown other members. I also want to indicate that all members have got the same privileges. And that is why I've listened carefully to each one of you and the interventions. We've done that. And therefore, honorable members, we must now proceed. I've heard the request by the EFF Chief Whip, and I just want to inform her that earlier on we had received a request from the Democratic Alliance requesting that there must be a voice recording of the vote when we come to voting. We've also received a request from the MK party. Now, I am not sure whether you did consult together, because the first request we received from the MK party was that it must be a show of hands. So we will formally inform you when that time comes, what process are we going to follow. But I just want to alert all parties that the three parties did make a request on the mode of voting that must be followed. Thank you very much. I'll now ask the chair to table the report.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The Deputy President, Ministers, Deputy Ministers, Members of Parliament. I want to indicate that the Minister of Finance, Honorable Godongwan, tabled the 2025 national budget before Parliament on 12 March 2025 in terms of Section 27 of PFMA and Section 7.1 of the Money Bills Amendment Procedure and the Related Matters Act. The Minister, together with the Commissioner of South African
Honorable
Revenue
members, sorry, Honorable Chair.
Chair, we can't hear this illegal.
Can we please ask
framework.
members?
We can't hear. It's even illegal and we can't even hear it.
Can we please ask members to use their earphones?
Chair, it's even worse when they put it on. We're not lying.
Honorable members.
When I ANC, you'll already
Honorable
know
members.
to steal money.
Order.
That's why they
Order.
thing.
Honorable members, we are
Speaker,
proceeding.
I'm pleading with you.
You cannot
Not here.
abuse our privileges.
No, you're
Honorable
abusing us,
Chairperson,
Speaker. You are abusing us by not providing us quality sound. Sound is 101. We're not even pretending.
Honorable
Speaker,
Chairperson,
listen to it yourself. It's
Chairperson of the
horrible.
committee, can you please proceed?
You're just
Honorable
taking yourself
members, I
serious
am
when
not
you
going
want
to
to
allow
steal
points
here,
of orders
ANC.
because really this is about abusing privileges that we have.
Speaker, it's not
No,
true. You are
honorable
using
member.
us as a speaker
Honorable,
and representing our constituencies. We cannot hear. Speaker, listen. It's horrible. Plus, there's squeaky things here. We can hear you telling us how illegal this framework is. I don't even understand how you can't hear the squeak in this dome as
Can
well.
hear you.
This is the quality that you are giving us to listen to an illegal report, Speaker. It's not fair.
Honorable members, I've raised earlier on that while all of you have got privileges as members of the House, such privilege cannot be abused. You have raised the issue of the sound. We have asked the sound people to address it as you are continuing to make your points of orders. We have been assured that the sound, both on the earphones and also in the dome. So those of you who may not hear from not using your earphone, I will really plead with you to use your earphone so that we proceed the debate. And I would really plead with members not to disrupt the House by actually coming up with all sorts of spurious points of orders. Honorable member, can you please raise your point of order so that we can proceed with the debate?
Thank you, Speaker. And Speaker, we don't want to disrupt the proceedings. I think that's the first point of departure. Speaker, you might downplay this issue of the sound, but it's not the first time. We've raised it before, and this is now the third time. The last session we had to adjourn for them to fix the sound. The other time it was the aircon. The other time it was something else. So we are saying to you, your house is collapsing, Speaker, under your watch, under the GNU. And that is why we're saying this is a very important sitting. If the whole of South Africa is watching the proceedings of Parliament, we might look like we're unreasonable by actually pointing out to you the things we've pointed out to you before. The sound is not good, and the people, our constituency, are WhatsApping us, are telling us that they can't hear the proceedings. So we are asking you, Madam Speaker, please let's have 5 minutes break. Let the sound, the last time the sound people had to be fired. And that was confirmed by the Secretary of Parliament after our request and after our complaint that the sound system is not proper. They were fired. So these new ones should have done the right thing and should know that they should have done the right thing. Because we are now back to the same issue, we are appealing to you, Speaker, adjourn the session for 5 minutes so that they can fix the sound. Our constitution, my mother is watching, but he can't hear what we're dealing with.
All the honorable members.
This affects all South Africans.
That's why you want to appear on TV.
Honorable member, that actually borders on abusing the process. And I really would plead with all of us. Let us respect ourselves, this house, and the people of South Africa. And I really think we should do so. I said honorable members have an opportunity to raise their points of debate in this house, and they've got an opportunity to even vote. If there is a need to do so at the end, you will determine that. And I don't think we need to belabor the point on this matter. Honorable member waving the paper, what's your point of order?
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I've not gotten involved in the debate about the legality, but I'm telling you in all honesty, we can't hear over here. I've tried the headphones, it's actually working. Speaker, I'm going to ask you if you can adjourn for 5 minutes to have the sound. We can hear. Speaker, I'm not being funny about it at all, but we lost 16 billion rand over the last few days because of this budget. We want the chair to deliver. I personally want to. If I can't hear him, Speaker, then we might as well all go home. Thank you.
Honorable members, I am proceeding. You can use your earphones. We really cannot belabor the points. Those members who feel very strongly that they are not hearing, they must use the earphone. But we cannot stop the debate today. Honorable members, I have stopped on this issue of the sound and we proceed. Chairperson, can you please table the report?
Speaker, I will spend some time to outline the procedure that has been followed by the committees in processing the report. The Minister, together with the Commissioner of SARS, briefed the Committee on Finance on the 14th of March 2025. On the 18th of March 2025, the Committees of Finance, both in the NCOP and NA, received the post-budget tabling input from the Parliamentary Budget Office and the Financial and Fiscal Commission. The committee issued adverts for public hearings on 4th March 2025 on website, social channels, and print media. The committees held the public hearings on 25th March 2025. We received 51 submissions, 29 written and 22 oral. National Treasury and SARS responded to the issues raised during the public hearings and engaged with the committees and stakeholders on the 28th of March 2025. On 31st March, The committee secretariat sent out the draft report and the agenda of the committee meetings to the members of the standing and the select committees respectively. Yesterday, which was the 1st of March, the two committees, the standing and the select committees, had the meeting to consider and adopt the report. The meeting is conducted in terms of the rules as outlined in the rules book. Speaker, Section 8, subsection 1 of the Money Bills Amendment Procedure and Related Matters Act 2009 requires that the National Assembly and the NCOP refer the fiscal framework to their respective committees on finance. Section 8, subsection 3 requires that committees must, within 16 days after the tabling of the budget, report to the NA on the fiscal framework. And we are doing that today. The report that the House is considering today is a result of an extensive process. We welcome the budget as tabled by the Minister of Finance, as it will invest in strategic infrastructure. Over the next years, 1 trillion will be allocated to public infrastructure, with major allocations to roads, which will be 402 billion, energy, 219 billion, water and sanitation, 156 billion. This budget will support job creation and maintain a growth-friendly fiscal policy that will underpin government policy over the medium term. It will stabilize the debt service costs, which consume 22% of every rand of revenue. Spending is highly redistributive, with the social wage making up 61% of total consolidated non-interest spending over 3 years. Having considered the 2025 fiscal framework and revenue proposals, the Standing Committee on Finance adopted the 2025 fiscal framework and revenue proposals, and this report was adopted with recommendations. Amongst the recommendations that the committee processed was the issue of VAT. And in this regard, I want to commend the Action SA for crafting the recommendation. The Minister of Finance should give the rationale as to why an increase in the VAT rate, and what will the government do to mitigate the impact of the increase in the VAT rate. The minister is given a reasonable time to assess the budget and see if he cannot find items which the government can cut to make up for the VAT. Speaker, today we are processing the budget of the country, which is an issue of national interest. Decisions made in the national budget influence the standard of living, the distribution of wealth, and the overall economic health of the country. Thus, citizens, policymakers, members of parliament, and international actors closely scrutinize the national budget as it determines how a country handles its financial resources and addresses pressing national needs. Speaker, I want to indicate that in the meeting of yesterday, all parties who participate in that committee had an opportunity either to object or to agree with the report. Those parties that objected, their comments are contained in the report. And the meeting was conducted, as I've said before, in terms of the rules of parliament. There was no member who was intimidated in conducting that meeting. All members participated freely. At the end, the report of the committee was adopted. I want to indicate, the Speaker, that I want to move that the report of the standing committee be adopted today. And as patriots, let's make sure that we vote for this report, not for party politics, but for the interest of the people of South Africa. Let's rise above party politics and care about the needs and the interests of the people of South Africa. I so move, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Van Rooyen.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Allow me, Speaker, just to share two of many MK party.
Order,
takeaway
honorable
lessons.
members, can we allow the member on the platform to be heard?
Allow me to share two of many MK party takeaway lessons from this legally flawed fiscal framework and revenue proposal process. Number one, the process exposed National Treasury as a ministry that doesn't consider or take country public participation democracy serious. National Treasury was advised by both the FFC and the Parliament Budget Office not to increase VAT, as this will worsen the hard living conditions endured by the poor masses of our people. This advice was ignored. This advice was further reiterated by MPs serving in the Finance Committee, except ANC MPs, who were obviously instructed to swallow the bitter pill, even if it worked against their party position on being a pro-poor party. Interestingly, at the tail end of the process, IFP supported a very weird and legally flawed recommendation on VAT increase initiated by Action SA, which seems to be finding it difficult to resist the devil-packed blue lights temptation. Speaker, as if that was not enough, National Treasury, through a public participation process facilitated by Joint Committee of Finance, received 51 submissions. Only 2 of these submissions supported VAT increases. The rest opposed the regressive revenue generation measure. Still, National Treasury refused to listen. The million-dollar question is, who is National Treasury serving and supposed to listen to? If the overwhelming majority voice of reason is ignored, who is National Treasury listening to? We hope this posture by National Treasury does not confirm our long-held view that South Africa is controlled by powerful men from Washington and London, pulling the strings in far-flung neoliberal colonies. Of course, with the active support of greedy and unpatriotic local politicians, 10 political managers of the moment. As MK Party, we hope that National Treasury posture does not substantiate our long-held view that National Treasury is a proxy of global capital whose sole objective is to enrich the few and subject the masses of the global population to extreme poverty, unemployment, and inequality through neoliberal policies. I must indicate, Minister, you were advised to consider reviewing tax incentives given to businesses without realization of desired outcomes, so as you can save millions for the fiscus. You were further advised to consider suspending government contribution to government employees' pension fund and generate much needed injection to the fiscus. We advise you to consider wealth tax to tamper with the unacceptable wealth distribution disparity bedeviling our country. All these advices fell on deaf ear. Honorable Speaker, the list of alternative revenue sources is very long. Our country has the potential to finance its development agenda, provided its leaders stop worshipping white capital at the expense of its people. MK Party does not support this report. It is far from addressing the budget requirements and challenges of our beloved country. It is more a compliance exercise which failed to meet the statute provisions. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Berker. Mrs. Pelly. Honorable Berker.
Madam Speaker, it's significant that this report was considered in yesterday's committee on the first day of April. A farcical day for a farcical process leading to a farcical report. Yet, it's a report that sadly is not an April Fool's joke. Madam Speaker, this House generates stacks of reports, agendas, and minutes of meetings which fill archives, servers, and libraries. Much of it meaningless, expensive, full of nothing documents that change very little for our people, a waste. But every now and then, Parliament has the ability to take regular A4 paper and give it remarkable power to change lives with laws, to table budgets, and because of the power in the Constitution and the Money Bills Act, gives Parliament the power to amend bad budgets. And yesterday we had the chance and almost the numbers to amend a bad budget. We could have fulfilled our constitutional duty to do so, to protect South Africans, to protect them from a budget that includes VAT increases, that doesn't move the needle enough for an efficient government that creates jobs and grows the economy. And that chance was spectacularly squandered. It was squandered by Action SA, the IFP, and the ANC, who voted on a version of a report which only came into existence hours after the meeting and the voting had concluded. Now, sure, supporters of this April Fool's Day farce are very quick to point out while they accepted the fiscal framework, they're making recommendations to relook at tax increases. Madam Speaker, the archives are full of reports with ignored recommendations. Why don't we ask the Auditor General how delinquent ANC local governments across the country respond to their recommendations year after year? Why don't we ask those who worked on the Zondo Commission what they think the effect of their recommendations has been? After all, the Zondo Commission detailed how the Honorable Joe Maswangani was complicit in state capture. Yet that honorable member is here with us today. He spoke just earlier. And he chaired the farcical, procedurally flawed meeting yesterday. Reports in the hands of ANC-led governments mean nothing. Let me be specific. Action SA took the votes it received from market-friendly and center-right South Africans and sold them out
Honourable member,
to support the framework for what?
Order, Honourable Becker. Can you take a seat? Honourable member, what's the point of order?
No, thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. I'm rising on Rule 85. The Honourable member is casting aspersion on Honourable Maswangani. He says Honourable Maswangani is complicit in terms of the state capture. So if you want to do that, he must bring a substantive motion.
Thanks, Speaker.
Honorable member, I would listen to the Hansard and come back with the ruling. Honorable Makhlakis, what are you rising on now?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when you consider the Hansard, will you also consider that the honourable member actually quoted the Zondo report, which was a fact? Thank you.
Honorable member, I said I will look at the matter and come back to the House with the ruling. Can you proceed, Honorable President?
Madam Speaker, I've consulted the Hansard dictionary on what casting aspersions means.
Honorable member, can you please proceed with your speech?
None of what I've said was false or misleading. It's all very well documented. And for me to damage your reputation, you need to have one.
Honorable member, on order, honorable member. I have said on the matter, because there was a point of order raised, I will come back to the House. So can you proceed with your speech on the report?
It's last time. As I was saying, Madam Speaker, what did Action SA sell their voters out for? 5 minutes of media coverage? Promises of future cabinet positions?
Insults.
Certainly not to stop taxes, because those taxes and those increases are still very much baked into the fiscal framework. Action SA has said it's in Parliament to be a constructive opposition. Its only significant achievement so far is to support a report enabling an ANC anti-poor, anti-growth and anti-jobs VAT-based budget.
We hate the ANC when that's a man.
And so there are only two rational explanations for what they were thinking and what the IFP might have been thinking. Either they were the April Fools and they genuinely thought they were changing the budget with their flimsy, pointless recommendations, and they didn't come to the committee with even a basic understanding of the Money Bills Act. Or, alternatively, these parties knew exactly what they were doing and were trying to make South Africans the victims, selling us down the river for an ANC VAT-based budget. And either way, what the IFP and ASA did was treachery. The DA, on the other hand, is very clear about what we're doing, and we've been consistent, both in our intentions yesterday and through the course of the 7th administration. We joined this government to drive efficient spending, grow the economy and create jobs, not to enable the worst parts of the ANC. The ANC will have to turn to Action SA for that.
Kylie is poor.
We've been met with an ANC that's refused to upgrade the economy or to compromise. They don't want coalition partners. They want supplicants. Welcome, ASA.
Goodbye.
I will say one thing.
Order, honorable members.
I will say one thing about all the paper that Parliament generates, Madam Speaker. Even the reports and motions that achieve nothing do record our deeds or misdeeds. And what will they record now? Today, you, honourable members, have the same opportunity Action SA and the AFP had yesterday and squandered either for cheap political points or as victims of the saddest April Fool's joke in parliamentary history. So your choice is as follows. 1, you can choose to vote for a report that keeps the fiscal framework as it is, that enshrines tax increases, enshrines bad economic policy, and supports the anti-poor, anti-growth, and anti-jobs ANC budget. Or 2, you can support us in opposing this increase.
Support you.
As the DA, we will remain on course. We'll pursue an efficient government, growth and jobs, and vote firmly against this farce of a report. We reject it with the content it deserves.
We reject you.
It's not worth the paper it was printed on.
Angry about the blue lights, no?
Honorable Maude, yes. Honorable Van Rooyen, what's your point of order? Sorry, Honorable Reddy.
Madam Speaker, I rise in terms of Rule 65. You know, while the previous speaker, it's not every day that we like to hear what the DA has to say, and today we wanted to hear, but members were actually speaking into the mic, switching on their mic, and as a result of that, we were unable to hear the speaker. Now, the sound, the acoustics is extremely bad on this side of the House. I'm really appealing to you, Speaker, to get some control here and inform members that they should not howl so much so that we cannot hear the speakers. Please.
Thank you, Honorable Reddy. That point I made myself for all of you in this House to actually be in order. Honorable Mauta, take your podium.
Thank you, Speaker. Greetings, President and Commander-in-Chief, Honorable Julius Malema, officials, commissars, and fighters. The EFF does not support the 2025 fiscal framework and revenue proposals as tabled by the Minister of Finance. Speaker, we wrote you last night an urgent letter requesting the withdrawal of the report on the 2025 fiscal framework and revenue proposals adopted by the Standing Committee on Finance yesterday, adopted during a very chaotic meeting and in a procedurally illegal manner. In our letter, we demonstrated that the committee failed to follow a very basic but essential legal requirement in terms of the Money Bills Amendment Procedure and Related Matters Act of 2009, and requested that you withdraw this item from the order paper, but you chose not to do so. This is what will ultimately collapse the confused GNU government, not the present backroom dealings and backstabbing we are witnessing, but the failure to follow a simple legislative process. With all the confusion we witnessed in the committee yesterday, we are reminded of a giant of our struggle, Mama Winnie Nomzamo Madikizela Mandela, who passed away on this day 7 years ago. She once said, and I quote, "We have betrayed our people. Our struggle has been betrayed. The ANC has become something we never envisaged." And I end quote. This quote rings truer than ever before, as the ANC, now hiding behind the so-called GNU, continues to sell out the aspirations of our people. The less said about Action SA's misunderstanding of the legislation which guides the process and procedure to amend and approve the proposed budget as tabled by the minister, the better. We will take time outside the sitting and explain, perhaps in a more simpler manner, that a budget is not passed based on negotiations of good faith, but is a creature of statutes. But let's deal with the crux of the matter, the debate, and what has caused so much chaos with this budget. Speaker, allow us to take the educational approach, and then we'll make some of the proposals that should have found expression in amending the report. Firstly, the procedure to process the fiscal framework and revenue proposal tabled by the Finance Minister is guided by the Money Bills Amendment Procedure and Related Matters Act. Let me remind you, this is the very same legislation that, when it was introduced in the late 1990s, the ANC and the then Finance Minister Trevor Manuel did not want this law because they wanted all the powers in the hands of a government to pass a budget. But that is not what the Constitution says. Secondly, once the budget is tabled by the Finance Minister as a proposal, it is up to us as members of Parliament who have legislative responsibility to finalize the budget. We cannot send it back to the Finance Minister. It becomes our baby, and we must see it through to the end. Number three, like we said in our letter to you, Speaker, this report was adopted unprocedural because despite our advice in the committee, the ANC refused to hear the advice and follow simple procedure. They could not allow for this to happen because they wanted to hoodwink Action SA into adopting a report they seem not to understand in its implications. And for that, we don't blame them because they simply didn't know. Lastly, Speaker, all other money bills, this includes the appropriation bill, division of revenue bills, and all other bills, including ultimately VAT, must be consistent with this fiscal framework and revenue proposal. You cannot vote for a VAT increase today and hope that when it comes in the form of a separate bill, it is different. It will be inconsistent with the law and this fiscal framework. President, we're making simple proposals as the EFF. We're saying we reject the Finance Minister's proposal of VAT
and we say it must be kept at 14%. We're saying let's adjust the personal income tax bracket in line with inflation so that when middle and low income earners receive annual adjustments on their wages, they are not pushed into higher brackets. We're saying let's increase corporate income tax and introduce new forms of wealth tax that target apartheid inheritance. We made a proposal for an amendment to increase funding for SARS so that they can go and collect 800 billion rands that is there uncollected. We made a proposal that let's give the Parliamentary Budget Office, together with the FFC, the mandate to recalibrate the budget, allocate additional money for the appointment of doctors, of nurses, of teachers, police officers, and more general workers in municipalities. We made all these concrete, practical, and implementable proposals in the meeting, but there was never a procedural and legal way to put this before a decision of the committee. Instead, Speaker, they were just ignored. Now, this is what is going to happen. If you vote for this fiscal framework and revenue proposal today against the advice, we're going to challenge you in court for failing to follow the law that is clear and basic. I thank you.
Thank
We
you,
need a taxi
Honorable
fare.
Member. Honorable Hadebe.
Kasongo, hey. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker.
Order, honorable members. We can allow
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. The Inkatha Freedom Party acknowledges the presentation of the 2025 fiscal framework and revenue proposals. The IFP notes that the macroeconomic projections underpinning the fiscal framework, particularly the estimated GDP growth rate and inflation forecast, while the government's revenue projections are optimistic, we urge a more cautious approach considering global economic uncertainties and domestic structural challenges such as higher unemployment, energy insecurity, and policy inefficiencies. We support efficient government spending but remain concerned about continued wasteful and irregular expenditure. We call for a strengthened oversight mechanism to curb corruption and mismanagement, realignment of expenditure priorities to ensure increased investment in healthcare, education, and job creation initiatives, and greater fiscal support for small and medium enterprises as engines of economic growth and employment. The revenue proposals include adjustments in taxation and the introduction of new levies. We raise the following concerns: that any increase in taxation should be carefully assessed to avoid discouraging investment and burdening households. We welcome the government's expansion of the zero-rated goods list to protect vulnerable communities, while we support measures to curb harmful consumption, tobacco and alcohol excise duties. We caution against excessive increase that may fuel illicit trade and job losses in affected industries. We acknowledge the importance of debt sustainability and therefore call for a pragmatic approach to deficit reduction. Instead of austerity measures that disproportionately impact service delivery, we advocate for targeted expenditure cuts in non-essential government spending, enhanced revenue collection through improved tax compliance and efficiency in tax administration, and encouraging private sector partnerships to lighten fiscal pressures while stimulating investment. Fiscal policies must be assessed in terms of their impact on poverty reduction, employment, and economic growth. We emphasize the need for increased public investment in infrastructure to create jobs and improve service delivery, expanded support for agricultural development to enhance food security in rural economies, and greater allocation towards youth employment programs and skills development to equip South Africans for future industries. Furthermore, we stress the importance of a transparent and accountable fiscal process to ensure that the fiscal framework achieves intended outcomes. Honorable Speaker, in consideration of the issues we have raised as the IFP, we support the 2025 fiscal framework and revenue proposals, as well as the committee report. And in conclusion, Honorable Speaker, I wish to caution the DA that if the DA think that their views are a master plan for all of us, they must wake up and think again. We are here to represent our constituency. We are here to represent the people of South Africa. We are not here to take mandate from the Democratic Alliance.
Order, honorable members.
Honorable Speaker, lastly, if the MK party if the MK party is really true and honest in that they are representing the people of South Africa, they must ask their leader why he loaned 2.4 billion to Swaziland when he was president of South Africa, instead of taking that money and bring and give it to the people of South Africa. I thank you.
The Minister of Sports, Art and Culture.
Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker.
Honorable Minister, please take your seat. Honorable Minister, please take your seat. There is a point of order. Could I just get an indication of where the point of order is? Honorable Dartmoor.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. My point of order relates to the fact that when the honorable member from the IFP started speaking and addressing some comments about the MKP that we could not hear, and we request that he be given an opportunity to repeat what he said about the MKP.
No, we agree.
Honorable member, your point of order is not sustained. We will proceed. Honorable Minister, honorable member, yes, please, your point of order.
Chair, Deputy Speaker, can you ask the member who just spoke now, under which rule is he talking about here?
Honorable member, I did not sustain the point, so we proceed. Honorable Minister, please proceed. Honorable Minister.
Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker.
Honorable Minister, please take your seat. Could I just have an indication of who has now activated his or her mic?
Yes, it's me on the side.
Yes, honorable member there at the back.
Deputy Speaker, I'd like you to rule on this matter. The Speaker, when he started mentioning the issue of the MK, was drowned. As a result, as members of Parliament, we did not hear. Please rule in it and give him the space to re-articulate what he was saying about the MK, because we did not hear. Was being drowned against the rule that guides this house.
Honorable member, Honorable member, I also refer you to the rule that once a speaker has ruled that you do not raise a point of order on that point, and I have not sustained that point of order, so therefore we proceed. Yes, honorable member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. We cannot be judged for sound issues that we've been raising for quite a number of times. And the member must understand that MKP are not sound engineers. While MPs hoping that Parliament will... They are not engineers of making the environment more conducive for us to do our work.
Honorable member, that is not a point of order, members.
We are not sound engineers. They are very far from being engineers anyway.
Honorable members, do not switch on your microphones if you have not been recognized. I see there is a
can't be
problem there in
engineers.
front, Honourable
They're very
Member.
far from that. They
But
can't be
please,
engineers.
can we now proceed? I have ruled on the matter, and the Honourable Minister may now proceed.
Speaker, we are fighting here today with our GNU partner, the DA. Now it's important that I must give context and history of the fight. The finance minister approached us and he said, we are looking at a 2% VAT. We immediately said, that's too much. We were negotiating, we were fighting, we were debating. We ended up on 0.5 percentage points. I can't have it my way or the highway. So on the basis that the African National Congress, a deployee in the finance minister, was willing to move from 2% to 0.5%. It is the reason why today I'm a proud member of the GNU.
Honourable Minister, please take your seat.
So,
Honourable Minister, please take your seat. Honourable Manye, on what point do you rise?
Thank you, Speaker. The honourable member is misleading the House. There was never a 2%. It's always been a 2 percentage point. The member must mislead the House.
Order, honourable members. Honourable members, I am now dealing with Honourable Manye's point. Honourable Minister, I have not yet called you to the podium. Honourable Manye, that is a matter of debate. So the Minister may proceed. I see the Honourable Pambu at the back. Yes, Honourable Pambu.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think at some point we must have an interaction with the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture that he never addresses the matters on the table in the Parliament of South Africa. He's constantly speaking about peripheral matters. Today, he's not debating the finance budget. He's speaking about something else. And I think it's a disservice to the people of South Africa. All he knows to do is to he knows to do is to praise those who have deployed him. At some point, there must be a reining in on the Minister of Sport. He doesn't make valuable contributions in Parliament. We have to have that conversation. He doesn't make valuable contributions to debate in this Parliament. He goes there and he speaks about peripheral issues because it's got no value to it. It's unacceptable. It's been continuing for a while now. We can't accept it as members of Parliament. Can you debate the matters on the table and stop telling us about his role in the GNU and his appreciation? We're tired. We're not thankful. We're tired of that. Please.
Honourable Pambu, that is a matter of your opinion and a matter for debate. The Minister may include in his speech whatever he wants to include. We cannot dictate. So, Honourable Manye, is it on the same point on which I have just ruled? Honourable Manye.
Chair, I'm raising on the point of saying a matter is a debate when it's a factual issue. If you were to look into
but there is no such a point, man. There's
if
no
you were
such
to
a
look
point.
at the budget, Honourable Deputy Speaker, there's no such a thing as a 2%. It's a 2 percentage points. It's fundamentally different. It's not a debate matter. It's a factual.
Honourable Manye, in terms of the rules, I have now ruled, and the Honourable Minister will now proceed. Honourable Minister, my apologies. Your member there at the back also wishes to raise a point. Yes, please go ahead, Honourable Daniels.
Thank you. Thank you.
Honourable Minister, please take your seat. Your member is on the floor. Honourable Minister, your member is on the floor. Yes, member, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. We must be sitting in different meetings because the Honorable Minister is raising points on the VAT item. Talking about the 2%, Honorable Chairperson, Speaker,
is a matter that was
Honourable
initially
member,
tabled.
I
So
have ruled on
they
the
mu-
matter.
Yeah, but they mustn't say we're not talking about VAT.
Honourable
When in
member,
fact, digits are being mentioned, which refers to VAT.
I have ruled on the matter, and please members take note. Once I have ruled on a matter, that is the end of that particular point of order, and we don't entertain it any further. Honourable Minister, please proceed.
So, Honorable Speaker, it was on that basis that I wanted to explain why is it that I support what we are discussing here today. Unashamedly. But you see, this parliament, since I joined this parliament, the name of the poor, it's been used by every Tom, Dick, and Jabulani. Everyone, the poor, the poor. The DA wanted to treat the VAT issue with Bella. Where was the poor in that transaction? Yesterday, a lady called Bronwyn Williams, her son was shot dead yesterday in Westbury. In Westbury. That lady is sick. After forensics took her son, they said to her, follow us. She said, no, I must go and vote first, because voting is the only way to silence the guns in my area. So if you wonder why Mackenzie is voting here, because this budget contains hope and plans that there will be more policing, there will be more jobs for the people. Lastly, you see, Des van Rooyen, Honorable Des van Rooyen come here, and he says, we love blue lights. When President Zuma appointed him for a weekend, he didn't say no to the blue lights.
Honourable Minister, there's a
We
point.
know
Honourable
it was
Minister,
for a weekend.
Honourable
But he was
Minister,
an appointment.
Honourable Minister, please take your seats. Honourable Skosana, your point of order.
Deputy Speaker.
Order, members. Please proceed, Honourable Skosana.
Deputy Speaker, President Zuma is not in the house here. So it's irrelevant. What he's talking about is irrelevant. Thank you.
Honourable Minister, please proceed. Honourable Minister, my apologies. Please take your seat. Member from the EFF, what is your point of order?
Speaker, and this is on relevance. You know, we were having a very sophisticated debate on money bills, on fiscal framework. The minister has totally degenerated the debate on budget. The guy simply has no clue what the money bills is about, what the fiscal framework is about. He's speaking like he's talking some numbers there in prison, talking about budget and all of this. Can you ask the minister, does he know what the fiscal framework says? Or is he going to continue degenerating the standard of the debate in this parliament about the budget? We can't stand for this mediocrity, we cannot.
Honourable Member, I have already ruled on the same point raised by the Honourable Pambu, and that is my ruling. Honourable Minister, please proceed.
Speaker,
Honourable Minister, you will be interrupted again. Please take your seat. Member from the MK, what is your point of order?
Mhlalwa ngaphambili. Mhlalwa ngaphambili. I just wish to check if the 3 minutes is not yet depleted of the minister there. Is wasting our time.
Honourable Member, that is for the presiding officer to indicate that the time has been concluded. Thank you. Honourable Member, MK.
Deputy Speaker, I just want to check, welcome player with the minister. The allegation that there's a child missing and then is the one that is
Members, that
suspected.
is out of
I want
order.
to check with the minister, is he aware of that he is supposed to be arrested for that? matter?
Honorable member, that is out of order. Minister, please proceed.
You know, Speaker, I'm sitting there being very proud of myself because I am containing myself. I'm being given economic lessons by people that have never given nobody a job, never opened a business, while I've given thousands of people a job. I've opened plenty of businesses. In
told you that?
conclusion, Speaker, I just want to conclude by saying 5 minutes before this hearing, I was the one running around saying to people, we can't lose the DA. We must convince the DA to remain. I'm standing here today to say, Abahambe. Thank you.
Abahabe.
Honorable members, order. Honorable vessels, please proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. We disagree on a lot of matters in this House, in this Parliament.
Honorable members, order.
But I do believe that we all agree that South Africa is in financial trouble. I do believe that we can all agree that we are in economic trouble, that there's not sufficient economic growth, that there's an unemployment crisis, and that the majority of South Africans are poor. I do believe that we disagree on the causes hereof. But whilst we disagree because of different ideologies and different policies, I do believe we can agree that the people out there, the ordinary South Africans, the majority of South Africans are suffering. I do believe, and I am convinced, that we can all agree, and we do all agree, and that there's a broad consensus in this Parliament that a VAT increase is not desirable. I do believe that. And that is why I also believe that accepting this fiscal framework, which still provides for and are based on a VAT increase, won't be acceptable for the Freedom Front Plus. The fact of the matter is that we could have amended this fiscal framework and made it better. For too long, Honourable Deputy Speaker, Parliament has functioned as a rubber stamp when it comes to budget. And that is why it is in the past accepted that what is tabled were just passed and implemented. Times are a-changing. We have to accept that. And that is why we can and do have the power to amend the fiscal framework, to make it better, and to what we are all convinced of, what we all agree with, that we should not overburden the already overtaxed South Africans even more, that we should change the fiscal framework and the budget as such. South Africans are overtaxed and underwhelmed, or underserviced, if you want. Job creation is not taking place. The economy is not growing. Poverty is increasing. And service delivery is lacking. Increasing tax in any form will not, at the end of the day, stimulate economic growth. It will lead to less economic activity. It will increase cost of living. It will lead to less disposable income, less job creation, less investment opportunities, and more poverty, which will lead to less tax revenue. And the projected tax revenue won't realize because of that economic reality. We have to note but a tax revolt is imminent in South Africa. And it's understandable because people are poor and getting poorer. We have to take that into account, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Government expenditure is not cost effective. A lot of money is being wasted. We have to address that, but we should leave the politicking and the political opportunism and rather focus on making this budget better and building a better economy so that we create wealth for all South Africans. I thank you.
The Honourable Trollip.
Honorable Speaker, let me remind us all why we are here this afternoon, and that's because we have a budget impasse and that the GNU has not been able to thread that budget needle, having been in government together for 9 months. And the main protagonist in this conflict is the very party that were clapping like seals this time a year ago when the minister tabled his budget. But now they are moaning like a drain. From the outset, Action SA has fiercely opposed any increase in VAT and the personal income tax bracket creep. We remain unwavering in our commitment shielding ordinary South Africans from unjust and unnecessary tax hikes. At the first aborted effort to table a budget, I said that the government must cut the fat and leave the VAT. Action SA chose to recommend changes to the fiscal framework rather than amend it outright, because an amendment would have required the Minister of Finance to redo the entire budget process. This would have caused more delays. Let me remind you what the delays are. 19th of February, aborted budget. 21 days later, 12th of March, presentation of a budget. 21 days later, we are here today and we have an impasse. All that while, the value of our rand has gone down the drain. The rand to dollar value has decreased by 1.1%. Rand to pound, 1.2%. Rand to euro, 1.1%. That's making South Africans much poorer than a proposed increase in VAT that we object to. Instead, our approach allows for the necessary time to table alternative revenue proposals and, most importantly, to gazette a postponement of the VAT increase without triggering a full budget revision. Action SA led the charge in the Standing Committee on Finance to protect South Africans from increases in VAT. We made this recommendation to prevent a VAT increase, to prevent inflation or to ensure inflation adjustments for personal income tax and prevent income tax stealth bracket creep. Instead, the committee now will have 30 days to develop alternative proposals to raise 19 billion rand in personal income tax and 13 billion rand to make up the shortfall that is required to balance this budget. This approach ensures that the government explores reasonable and responsible revenue solutions without burdening the ordinary South Africans with unfair tax hikes. Action SA's constructive, responsible alternative keeps the fiscal framework intact while preventing more fiscal instability and procedural deadlock. SARS has proven today that they are the master revenue collectors. They collected 1.855 billion rand of revenue in the last financial year. 8.8 billion rand more than they projected, 114 billion rand more than the year before. There is the solution. The solution lies with SARS doing its job and this House empowering SARS to do its job, not by taxing poor South Africans, not by exposing South Africans to bracket creep. We now have a month to fix that, and I hope that this House will put South Africans first and put their parochial priorities in their pockets. Thank you.
The Honourable Swart.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, the ACDP appreciates that this is a very complicated and complex matter. However, let us make it very clear that we have some serious concerns with the report, and we are concerned from a legal perspective as to the process that was followed. Surely, a senior counsel opinion should have been obtained, given the fact that in all likelihood, this matter will end up in the courts. If one also considers that the fiscal framework is premised on economic growth of 1.9%, last year's growth was a dismal 0.6%, 0.5% lower than Treasury's own projection. How realistic then is a 1.9% projection? Even the committee agrees that Treasury's growth projection is too optimistic, yet we accept this fiscal framework. It must improve the accuracy of its forecasts. And even on this dubious forecast, gross loan debt is set to reach a staggering 6 trillion rand, or 76.2% of GDP. Debt service costs 4.9 billion rand, or 22 cents of every rand of revenue. This is clearly unsustainable. So the ACDP is very clear, as most parties are here, that we do not accept the VAT increase. Yesterday, whilst the committee was sitting, SARS announced that they had collected an extra 8.8 billion rand. Surely, the additional balance, which is about 4 billion rand, could have been collected and will be collected without raising the VAT. We also do not support the fact that personal tax brackets were not increased for the so-called bracket creep. And we seriously question from a legal perspective whether these two aspects have in fact been scrapped as has been alleged. We firmly believe that South Africans are cash-strapped, and already according to the Laffer curve shows that additional taxes will have diminishing returns. The ACDP believes that a pro-growth budget which cuts unnecessary spending and wastage is what is required. Underperforming and unnecessary programs must be discontinued. Lastly, we believe that closing the tax gap, which is estimated by SARS at 800 billion rand, by only 10% would result in additional 80 billion rand for state coffers. We as the ACDP cannot support the report. We believe that those VAT changes and those other changes could have been implemented using the legislation that the committee has to its disposal. I thank you.
The Honourable Konko.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. It's easy to say, asifuni VAT increase, asifuni corporate income tax increase, but then what do we want? What are the alternatives? When you're dealing with finance, it's about balancing the books. So it's great that there's an opportunity for further engagement on the revenue proposals that were made by the minister. However, that process here, it is great. I don't take mandate from anyone except the UDM. It's great because it provides us an opportunity once again to reflect on the various scenarios and the options that might be tabled at that particular forum. Why? Simply because there are trade-offs in economics. There's also the transmission mechanism. So if you take one from here, it has an impact on the other sector of the economy. And it's easy to say no tax increase, but where are we going to get the alternative sources of revenue from? Because they are not on their own going to entail tax, whether it's indirect or direct. I mean, it's a no-brainer, it's simple economics. The second issue is we are only delaying the inevitable. At some point, we have to make this decision, and a difficult decision, to plug the revenue shortfall. So I hope this exercise is not intended to kick the can down the road, if you like, but that we are going to engage in intensive and extensive engagements about how best to find solutions for our country. And that is what is critical in essence. And it's not going to help us to try and seek refuge in our ideological enclaves and narrow partisan interests. It's not going to help South Africa to do that. And secondly, I think what is even more important, it's great to talk about the debt to GDP ratio. It's great to talk about growth forecasts which are unrealistic or unreasonable. That's true. But at some point, we have to grow the economy so that we can reduce the debt to GDP ratio as a ratio of the economy. Now, it means we need to try and manage all the economic fundamentals and the economic indicators simultaneously. They are not mutually exclusive. They have to be done concurrently because management of the economy is like that. But I think we should learn a lesson from what is happening right now. That consultation should have started way back when the budget cycle started last year, so that we're able to reach the compromises which we are likely to reach if we deal with this matter in a very matured way going forward. But as the UDM, we need money to bring our soldiers back from the DRC. We need money to be able to pay the SRD grant. We need the money to be able to pay social welfare budget. All of those are required. When I go to my constituency, I am not asked about Bella and whatnot. I'm asked about social grants, and we support this thing. Kuba siyazi ukuthi in the process, mayingena imali ebantwini, we sort ourselves out after that. Thank you.
The Honorable Zibi.
Madam Deputy Speaker, we are here today because the can has been kicked down the road too many times in the past, especially since February 19. We are here because trillions of rand borrowed by our government since 2013 have gone to waste. If we borrow more, it will be irresponsible. Today, we face a situation where the country pays interest of 8.5 billion rand per week on our debt at between 9% and 10%. Taking on any more debt will be a burden on future generations. We must make our choices within the money that is available. But the biggest problem we have is the composition of our expenditure. We spend too much on salaries, too much paying for debt, and too little on investment into the economy. The Department of Health only spends 5% of its budget on capital expenditure. The Department of Education, only 4%. That means we are asking fellow South Africans to wait longer for services they deserve. South Africans have been bled dry. They cannot afford any more taxes. They are angry because on a daily basis, they see people who steal and waste government money walking around without being arrested. Just last week, we were in Buffalo City on oversight. 57 million rand has been spent on a swimming pool so far, but it is still not working. Instead, it must be dug up and built again at a cost to taxpayers. In the OR Tambo district, where I come from, we see the same patterns. South Africans still waiting for clean running water, even though there are taps installed. We saw a dam project on which hundreds of millions have been spent, but there is still no dam and no water. We found the same pattern of mismanagement, with suppliers being paid for work that till today has not produced the desired result. The painful thing is that the people of South Africa have no choice but to put more money into the projects, because we cannot tolerate that there are South Africans who have no access to clean water. It is a painful insult to ask South Africans to pay twice, 3 or 4 times what they should have paid less for. Honorable Deputy President, surely, we can work together to find between 20 billion and 30 billion minimum in savings in the medium term, surely. But that means we must work together between now and October to start producing results from next year. South Africans cannot afford to bleed any more money. They don't have it. If we take the experience seriously, then we must use the next 30 days to find alternatives to VAT and personal income tax increases. We will certainly make detailed submissions in the respect so that we can finalize this budget. Therefore, we will vote for the adoption of this report.
The Honorable Maimane.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I think it's common cause. Today, we're not being asked to make an easy decision. We're being asked to make a responsible and a decision that serves the people of this country, not court processes, not political processes, but the people's processes. And therefore, fellow South Africans, it's not a choice between good or bad. It's a choice between worse or much worse. Delaying today will have the economic impact that we're beginning to see. Therefore, as Bossa, I come here today to say we are here to ensure the passing of this fiscal framework so that we can deal with the issues that sit within this budget. I've said it and I will say it again. This is not a good budget. Otherwise, all of us would accept it easily. But Parliament has the duty to amend it. That is a punishment on people for state capture. Therefore, let's use the next while to find alternative revenue mechanisms. And part of those revenue mechanisms, honorable members, pertain to saying, can we declare gambling as a sin tax so that we can raise the appropriate revenue through that whole process? The budget suffers because it tells the people we have 1.8% growth. We need more growth, not less, and it's a fictitious number. So I'm here to make some proposals. Minister of Finance, as you know, I've engaged you on this issue. I think we can support transformation, but let's ensure that the 20 billion rands allocated to the NEF can be staggered over the medium term, because if we do that, we can find the reduction in expenditure to ameliorate the VAT needs that we are putting on the table. Secondly, I think we need to strike a deal with one of our trading partners, which is the USA, so that we can increase the growth capital formation in this country. Thirdly, let us fund not only SARS, but let's fund the NPA and SIU so that those who stole the money can end up in jail and we can solve the revenue question. Lastly, let us fix municipalities. That's why, as the Appropriations Committee, our support as BOSA says we will be going to the Appropriations Committee to deal with the expenditure issues and to amend the budget that has been put before us. I say, honorable members, it's not a blank check. If we don't do these amendments in the next 30 days, we cannot support the appropriations bill. We cannot support the division of revenue. Our job is to find growth mechanisms so that we deal with this budget. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Maravo.
Siagnigo Agriculture. Even he's spending because he's going to get machine.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. The African Transformation Movement rejects 2025 fiscal framework and revenue proposals. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the ATM unequivocally stands against any tax increases. Raising taxes in the current economic climate will place an additional burden on already struggling households and businesses. South Africans are grappling with high unemployment, rising living costs, and economic stagnation. Increasing taxes will only stifle economic growth, discourage investment, and further push vulnerable communities into financial distress. Instead of extracting more from taxpayers, the government must focus on an efficient revenue collections, cutting wasteful expenditure, and eliminating corruption to maximize existing resources. Focusing on the business of the day, budget that prioritizes the needs of the many over the privileges of the few must be our guiding principles. The continued allocation of over 30 billion in medical aid tax credits disproportionately benefits the middle class, while our public health care systems remains underfunded. It does not make sense to subsidize private healthcare while provinces are forced to implement hiring freezes, compromising service delivery in our hospitals and clinics. This is an injustice that we cannot ignore. These funds should be redirected to strengthening our public healthcare infrastructure, ensuring that all South Africans, regardless of income, have access to quality healthcare. Honorable members, we are deeply concerned about the increasing push for public-private partnership at the local government level, often without transparency on their financial implications. Initiatives like Operation Vulindlela are being promoted with little evidence, modeling or clear results on the long-term impacts. PPPs often obscure debt obligations and expose critical services such as water and electricity to costs escalation that makes our people more vulnerable, and they are unaffordable for our people. If we are to pursue such partnerships, There must be full disclosure and public scrutiny to prevent unintended consequences that disproportionately affect the poor. Honorable Deputy Speaker, we stand at a crossroads. South Africa's fiscal framework must be one that serves its people equitably. We cannot continue with policies that entrench inequality while millions struggle to access basic services. The ATM calls for a budget that prioritizes
Remember,
the
your
people
time has
directing
expired.
full expenditure. We do not adopt the report. Thank you.
The Honorable Makubela.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, honorable members, the fiscal framework and revenue proposal report tabled before us considers a budget that continues to advance the transformation of the country through a redistributive measure. The fiscal framework of the 2025 priorities prioritizes the expansion of government spending with a net increase of non-interest expenditure of 142 billion. This increases our social wage and cushions the poor through a safety net and strengthens the provision of critical social services. The budget further prioritizes key capital investments to strengthen network industries and expand infrastructure development to contribute to economic growth and job creation. The ANC has always advanced a progressive taxation system which taxes the rich and the middle strata to support the poor and the marginalized. In the local sphere of government, most of the rates and taxes are collected from urban areas to support our rural areas and townships. This is a character of a progressive tax system. True to its commitment to the people of South Africa, the ANC has shaped our fiscal policy to prioritize the social wage, which currently stands at 61% of the budget. The social wage is about the poor and the marginalized. In the main, it expands access to education, health, shelter for the poor, and it provides a safety net through a comprehensive social security system, which is one of the largest grant systems in Africa and in the continent. On revenue proposals, the ANC welcomes the internal processes of the National Executive, which resulted to a decline in the VAT from the first 2% proposed to the 0.5. The ANC has resolved, as part of the public involvement, to have National Treasury to look into an alternative revenue source to cover the shortfall, which is proposed to be to cover the VAT increase and the inflationary adjustment to personal tax brackets. We can assure South Africans that this fiscal framework is subject to a strict recommendation coming from the Standing Committee on Finance, which recommends that National Treasury facilitates to seek alternative revenue and expenditure savings to balance the 28 billion shortfall. We believe that multiple social interventions will cushion the poor, such as the zero-rated food basket, social grant increases, and the increases in the indigent program. And the decision not to increase the fuel levy and the intervention to improve affordability of public transport will provide a relief for the public. Honorable members, seated here in this assembly, we are fully aware and cognizant of the fact that our challenges as a country are a problem of the stagnant economy that cannot create enough jobs, for the youth and the unemployed. The budget that is tabled before us makes bold measures to cushion the poor and the workers. That will be done through the increased social grants above inflation, including funding of the social relief distress grant, support unemployment, which will cover about 28 million South Africans. Allocations for the 3-year public service wage agreement, which is above inflation, will mitigate against the cost of living for the poor, stimulating increased household consumption. About 19 billion is added to cover the medium term to keep approximately 11,000 teachers in their classrooms. 28 billion is added to the health budget to keep about 9,300 healthcare workers in our hospitals, in our clinics, which will contribute to addressing the matter of unemployed doctors, nurses, and employ about 800 post-community service doctors. This fiscal framework includes funding the missing middle to enable the continued access to higher education. Honorable members, to stimulate economic growth, the fiscal framework takes bold measures through increased public infrastructure spending for over 3 years, which will amount to about 1 trillion, focusing on Sunroll, Transnet, Eskom transmission, and the provision of water. New regulations for the public-private partnerships will take effect from 1 June 2025 to increase infrastructure investment and enhance crowding of the private financing for public infrastructure. SARS is allocated 3.5 billion in the current financial year and an additional 4 billion over the medium term to enhance revenue collection. This will strengthen SARS efforts to collect a significant portion of the projected 8 billion that is collected and to tackle illicit financial flows. Honorable members, about 2.1 billion over the medium term is allocated to support about 120,000 SMMEs, which will benefit businesses owned by the youth, persons with disabilities, and other small business owners. To achieve debt sustainability, we need to resolve the economic growth problem. We should take measures to lower our annual debt servicing costs and tackle the imposition of high credit premiums as advanced by the African Union. Without restructuring of the global and the domestic financial sector, low to middle income countries like ours will experience a stunned economic growth due to high credit premiums. The ANC welcomes the public participation that was made by 51 submissions, which have enhanced the consideration of this fiscal framework and revenue proposal, which were very constructive. The ANC further consider submissions made in shaping ongoing efforts to resolve the social and economic challenges the country is confronted with. As I conclude, Honorable House Chairperson, I want to leave you with a saying that resonates amongst my people, the people of the Lowveld in Mpumalanga, who are Shangaan speaking. They often bring hope by saying, Hambi shote kankari, mara shinga endleki. Nishosho, hiri hambi shote kankari, shinga endleki. Akhenza, mtama stulu, inkomu, kaimam.
The Deputy Minister of Social Development, Deputy Minister.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, Thank you very much. Al-Jamaa would like to thank the Minister of Finance for going out of his way to give pensioners and children and people with disabilities above inflation increases in spite of difficult fiscal constraints. Minister, 28 million people in the receipt of social grants, they salute you. Please, a round of applause to the Minister of Finance. A 30-day breather is very progressive. A round of applause to Action SA. The report of the Standing Committee on Finance on the 2025 fiscal framework and revenue proposal dated the 1st of April is a revolutionary report. And the fiscal framework is a world-class framework. It was developed after entertaining 51 submissions, 29 written and 22 oral. The point of order raised earlier today is like April Fool jokes compared to these well-thought evidence-based submissions by the thought leaders of South Africa. There were independent members of society who also contributing, making the points of order and positions of some speakers, honorable speakers before me, mute. None of them refer to any of these submissions. All of them support 15% VAT and raise no objection to this creature of apartheid. 30 years into our democracy, Parliament has done very little to reverse VAT introduced by the apartheid regime. Parliament has ignored other fiscal framework opportunities like zero-based budgeting, recovering illicit financial flows out of the country by multinational conglomerates and colonial companies. Tax on turnover is already in our framework, but it is not mandatory and there is no political will to insist on it. Once you have a fiscal framework with these important baselines, we can start the process to reduce VAT to under 10%. A single-digit tax. Let me compliment Treasury and the SARS Commissioner for the work in progress to deal with illicit financial flows, which hampers our GDP from reaching 5% growth. And this is not a pipe dream. Like I said, this is a world-class fiscal framework.
Deputy Minister, your time has expired. Thank you.
And the best minds in South Africa through submissions.
Honourable Deputy Minister, your time has expired.
Throw its weight behind Treasury, puts its confidence in them.
Honourable Deputy
and
Minister,
thank
your
them for
time
serving
has
the nation.
expired.
Thank you very much.
The NCC, Honourable Adams.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, colleagues, the Progressive Caucus, and the 9 wasted months. It is impossible for anybody with a conscience to support this report. It is because some of us have forgotten the cold chills in the shack. Some of us have forgotten what it's like to eat mealie meal with no sugar. Some of us have forgotten the indignity of using long drop toilets. It's why we are so comfortable to support this injustice. If this report ever goes to court, this meeting will be meaningless because it will be overturned. But what we can say is that this has been a heated debate. It was a debate between those who speak from the souls of our communities and those who speak from the pockets of Rob Hershoff. Ultimately, this is dehumanizing to pass the flops of this government onto the poor and say it's only 0.5%. The honest truth is that it is 6% over 2 years. But lying to the people who brought us here is nothing new to this parliament. I want to applaud the DA for standing up against this 0.5%. But I want to ask the DA how they balance that, considering that they want to scrap minimum wage and want our people to work for food and water. The seeds of food riots have been planted in this report. We thank the Progressive Caucus for standing by their morals, for standing for the poor, saying no to this report. Thank you.
PIC.
Deputy Speaker, phambi koba ixesha lam liphele kuba i-3 minutes incinci, mandiqale ngendaba endayibalulekileyo. The PAC supports this fiscal framework and revenue proposal. It is our observation that maintain the practice of expenditure on servicing the needs of our people is the correct position given the foundations of a developmental state that is focused on redress politically and addressing poverty. Spending on the poor, providing access to basic needs and services such as food, housing, water, and electricity is the reason why we are here. Our people expect a budget that speaks to the needs of the majority. We call on the improvement on tax collection before cutting expenditure on increasing the burden on compliant taxpayers. We are looking forward to see how the budget allocated to SARS for improved tax collection will be utilized. At the same time, let us not rush to borrowing money that comes with harsh conditions and future patterns. Cutting expenditure that directly impact on the living conditions of the poor is unacceptable. The investment in transport Madiba infrastructure as an example of pro-poor expenditure is welcomed. Given the distance the poor travel from migrant labor in our metros, cities and towns. The working poor spend up to 60% of their income on transport, and this leaves them in a perpetual poverty trap. We support a budget that seeks to provide universal coverage in health to all our citizens. Our support for the budget is based on our mandate, which we received from the majority of the electorate who remain poor and unemployed. If we are serious about addressing the inequality in our country, it cannot ignore the fact that we are here because of decades
Honourable
of
Minister, there is a point
on
of
the
order.
African
Please take
majority.
your seat. Honourable Minister, please take your seat. There is a point of order. Honourable Member, MK.
Honorable Speaker, thank you so much. We just want to know how much money has been allocated for land redistribution in the budget. Those who are fighting for the budget, tell us.
Honourable Member, in terms of the rules, you first have to ask whether the Speaker is prepared to take a question and not just ask the question. Honourable Minister, please proceed.
I don't have time for comedy. We support, if we are to seriously address the inequality in our country, it cannot ignore the fact that we are here because of decades of underspending and on the African majority. And this was done deliberately by the apartheid government. By ignoring the needs of the majority of opposing a pro-poor budget, as was presented, we are further entrenching inequality and advancing an apartheid-type government. Speaker, we fought for poor people. We went to jail for poor people. We went to exile for poor people. We were hanged for poor people. We can't be told by our former oppressors that they are fighting for the poor. We support this budget.
The UAT.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Kgotso Africa. As UAT, we reject this report because this report does not align with the developmental objective of our nation. Instead, it exacerbates economic inequality and serves the interest of the capitalist imperialist at the expense of the working class and the poorest. The VAT increase contradicts the economic development goal. The nation's fiscal policy should be designed to stimulate inclusive economic growth, reduce inequality, and promote industrialization, particularly in a country like ours. However, increasing VAT achieves the opposite. The South African National Development Plan and the African Union Agenda 2063 both emphasize the need for progressive taxation and inclusive economic policies that do not burden the lower income groups. This increase will lead to a decline in consumer spending, particularly on essential goods, a rise in food insecurity and poverty levels, increased financial strain on small businesses which rely on consumer demand. South Africa must prioritize its citizens over the Western capitalists. It is deeply problematic that the National Treasury justifies VAT increase by comparing South Africa to OECD countries. We cannot allow our economic policies to be dictated by Western capital frameworks that do not serve our people's interest. Parliament must act independently and prioritize the need of South Africans over the foreign economic pressures. Honorable members, rejecting this fiscal framework is not an act of defiance. It is an act of responsibility. Our nation cannot afford to adopt policies that entrench inequalities and suppress economic growth. Instead, we demand a progressive taxation that ensures that welfare contribute fairly to national development. A crackdown on corporate tax invasion to recover billions lost through illicit financial flows. Increase investment in local industry and infrastructure to create jobs and reduce reliance on consumer tax. Kani mambo.
The Honourable Minister of Tourism.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Today we are witnessing a new history here. We see the birth of a new doomsday coalition. The DA, the MK, and the EFF, that's the new doomsday coalition that we see today. Now it's the time, not for party posturing and politicking. Now it's the time for us to work together and put our country first. As the Good Party, we commend the increase in the allocation of education and infrastructure, as well as the retention of the social relief of the stress grant. We further welcome the recommendation by the Appropriations Committee that the SRD be taken into a basic income grant. Because Section 27 of our Constitution places an obligation on government to make sure that we...
Honourable Minister, please take your seat. There is a point of order. Honourable Member of the MK.
I'd like to, the Minister.
Honourable Minister, please take your seat while the point of order is being raised.
Thanks, Madam Deputy Speaker. I just want to ask if the Minister can take a question.
Honourable Minister, are you prepared to take a question?
No, Suga.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Madam Speaker, is Suga parliamentary?
Honourable Minister, please take your seat. Honourable Minister,
The gesture and the hand gestures against the Rule 84.
Please take your seat, Honourable Minister. Your point of order, Honourable Member. Please repeat it.
I want to establish if it's parliamentary for the Minister to use these gestures and say Suga on myself.
She was stretching her hand.
So please rule on that.
Honourable
The Minister
Member,
was stretching her hand.
please do not interfere whilst I am busy deliberating on a point raised. It is unparliamentary to say Suga with the hand gesture. Honourable Minister, I would ask you to please withdraw that.
I withdraw, Madam Deputy Speaker. Slalapansi. Madam Deputy Speaker, every member of the executive has got a role to play to grow our economy and to create jobs. It is not the responsibility of National Treasury alone. What we need to see as a matter of urgency is that every minister in the executive come with a plan as to what their departments will contribute towards economic growth and job creation, not just National Treasury. And for ministers to create jobs, they need a budget. So those ministers with budgets that are going to vote for their budgets today, they can create jobs. But if you are a minister without budget that you are not voting for today, you can't create jobs. So we have to look into that. Madam Deputy Speaker, I am confident that with the allocation to South African Revenue Services of 7.5 billion over the MTEP period, that they will be able to collect more taxes next year, and that the 0.5% VAT will only be applicable for the current financial year. I'm confident that they are going to raise that money so that we only have the 0.5% VAT for 1 year. So I would like to appeal to all of us to make sure that we work together. We can't just say for the interest of the sake of the country, but then some of us wants to be holier than thou. So the strange bedfellows, the Doomsday Coalition, we are going to vote you out. Thank you.
The Honourable Cuthbert.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Yesterday, we witnessed the ANC and Action SA choose taxing South Africans over growing the economy. They chose to undermine their partners as they could not accept that they are now a 39% party and are obligated to create a shared economic vision for our country. A vision that would grow the economy, create jobs, and lift millions of South Africans out of poverty and into prosperity. Instead of working with its partner in the GNU, the ANC decided to collude with a band of bitter exes, has-beens, and political opportunists, otherwise known as Action SA. A party with a demonstrable record of sacrificing good governance and growth at the altar of expediency. One only has to look at the cities of Tshwane and Johannesburg, where these two parties colluded to
Honourable
install
Member, please
coalitions.
take your seat. There is a point of order. Could you please just raise your hand? I cannot see who's raising the point. Yes, Honourable Member, on what point are you rising?
I want to check if the honourable member is prepared to take a question.
Honourable Member, are you prepared to take a question?
I want to ask if he's...
No, he is not prepared to take a question. Thank you, Honourable Member. Please proceed. Honourable Member, I have ruled on the matter and I've not recognised you any further.
There is a bankrat. I think my comment obviously hurt the Honourable Member there. One only has to look at the cities of Tshwane and Johannesburg, where these two parties colluded to install coalitions of corruption at the expense of critical service delivery. As they attempted to spin their misdeeds to voters in these two cities at the time, they followed the same playbook yesterday. Firstly, the Finance Committee had only two options.
Honourable Member, please take your seat. Honourable Swart.
Chairperson, I'm rising on Rule 85.
Honourable Swart, if you can just bring the microphone closer to you.
Someone mentioned that he is a bankrat. Now, obviously, that is unparliamentary. We don't know who said that, but maybe the person that wanted to put the question. But I would submit that it is totally unparliamentary and must be withdrawn.
Thank you. The reference was to bankrat. I am not quite sure that that is unparliamentary, Honourable Swart. I think that is a description of someone. What I do take exception is that the member spoke without being recognised.
Yeah, but also...
Honourable Cuthbert, please proceed.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Firstly, the Finance Committee had only two options. It could either accept or amend the existing fiscal framework as empowered by the Money Matters and Related Procedures Amendment Act. On this score, the ANC, IFP, and Action SA voted in favour of the existing fiscal framework, which included a 0.5 percentage point VAT increase and the non-adjustment of personal income tax brackets for inflation, commonly referred to as bracket creep. However, they desperately tried to buy themselves cover by inserting non-binding recommendations into the committee's report, which requested that the National Treasury revise its budget within 30 days. So despite the snake oil Action SA sold to South African last night, the National Treasury has no legal obligation to amend the framework if it passes in today's sitting. Secondly, the financially and illegally illiterate Honourable Beasley confidently stated that his proposal would amount to a 28 billion rand reduction on the revenue side of the balance sheet. However, if one were to remove both the VAT increase and bracket creep, the actual amount would be 31.5 billion. Worst of all, he had no idea where the National Treasury would find the money to plug the gaping hole left in the fiscus. To make it abundantly clear to members of the public, Action SA capitulated to the ANC's misguided policy of taxing South Africans and undermining the economic reform agenda. In contrast, the DA has remained resolute in its opposition to any new taxes and succeeded in blocking the initial 2 percentage point VAT hike from the budgets tabled in February. Furthermore, the DA submitted a fully costed alternative to the existing fiscal framework, which would have generated 27.2 billion in savings from national departments alone. These savings could have been used to eliminate the need for any tax hikes and prioritize expenditure towards growth-enhancing reforms. However, the DA did not stop there. We proposed a comprehensive overhaul of the country's economic policy to address the following critical issues. A GDP growth rate that has remained capped at 1.3% from 2008 to 2024 and cannot keep up with annual population growth. This is best demonstrated by the fact that South Africans, on average, have become poorer over the years, with GDP per capita declining from $7,900 in 2010 to $6,000 in 2023. An expanded unemployment rate that has increased from 31% to 42% between 1994 and 2024, which means that millions of South Africans have joined the unemployment queues on an annual basis. Even more concerning is that our children are not equipped with the necessary education and skills to gain meaningful employment, as illustrated by the 60% youth unemployment rate. Previous ANC governments have also led us to the brink of fiscal collapse, with our debt to GDP ratio having risen from 44% in 2014 to 77% in 2024, while debt repayments consume 21% of all government revenue. If the rest of these metrics did not make the ANC think twice about the need for meaningful economic reform, then they should look at the trend line from the BER's Business Confidence Index, which had an average score of 36 out of 100 between 2014 and 2024. If we genuinely expect businesses to invest in our country and create jobs, but they lack faith in the government's policy direction, we have absolutely no hope of addressing the frightening policy crisis that is facing our economy. This is why we as the DA remain resolute in our call for the following bold economic reforms. Pursuing an aggressive debt reduction strategy to ensure that we live within our means and do not allow debt repayments to crowd out the expenditure on frontline services. Expediting the private sector's involvement in electricity generation and transmission to create a truly competitive energy market. Finalizing port and rail concession agreements with private partners to enhance competitiveness and position ourselves as an export-oriented economy. Scrapping duties on manufactured goods not produced in South Africa and other localization policies that hinder trade and make goods more expensive for consumers. And lastly, removing the extension of collection bargaining council wage agreements for SMMEs, which hinder hiring and add to the number of South Africans in grinding unemployment. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the choice before us today is clear. Those parties in favour of voting for this fiscal framework will betray the voters who elected them to this very House. My only advice to these parties is, good luck explaining this to your voters at the local government elections next year, and do not be surprised when they punish your expediency at the voting booth. The DA rejects this pro-tax, anti-growth budget with contempt it deserves. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
The Honourable Molefe.
Madam Deputy Speaker, each generation must discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it in relative opacity. This is what Frantz Fanon said more than 50 years ago in his book, The Wretched of the Earth. That I'm invoking the writings of this great African speaks directly to the challenges imposed on us, this generation, by centuries of oppression and exploitation. The response of our fathers and forefathers in their titanic battle to defeat the demon of racism and exploitation, and the things that have been done and not done since the attainment of freedom in 1994. It points starkly and glaringly to the monstrous beast we are facing as a country and its resilience in resisting change and transformation. Indeed, this beast is not only resilient, it is also agile and can adapt very easily, despite it being enormous and elephantine. It easily changes its colors, but more ominously, it has very loyal surrogates who work extremely hard and reside within the bosom of its opponents in such a sophisticated way that in time, many effectively begin to believe that the surrogates and the beast itself are in fact the leaders against all that defines the same beast and its legacy. It then eloquently and convincingly presents the legitimate opponents of oppression and exploitation as the incarnation of its historical self. Let me turn to the business of the day, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Financial and Fiscal Commission has urged the National Treasury